If only they knew why even the big boys and the rich wash plates in her shop to be served food.
Go wash your plate. No plate, no food, no exception. Go wash your plate. Everybody go wash your plate.
In the chaotic heartbeat of Akoto Market, where the air smelled like fried plantains, sweat, and secrets, stood a crooked shed most people wouldn't dare glance at twice. It leaned like it wanted to fall but never did. The zinc roof was eaten with rust and holes, patched clumsily with old election posters. The faded poster of a smiling politician now served as a makeshift ceiling tile, peeling away like rotting skin. There was no signboard, no menu, no welcoming decor. Yet people called it what it was. Mama Put. That was not just her name. It was a law. A force. A hunger-inducing spell. The shack had no concrete floor, just hardened mud mixed with old palm oil stains and lost dreams. Flies danced around the smoky pot that simmered endlessly. The fire never seemed to go out. Nobody knew where she bought her meat or her fish or her spices. Yet once the aroma floated into the market, it was war. They came from every corner. From air-conditioned boardrooms. From luxury salons in Lekki. From the back seats of bulletproof jeeps. Men in Agbada, hands adorned with gold chains. Women with imported lace and lashes long enough to swat flies. Yahoo boys in Benz. Hustlers on Okada. Shoeless beggars. All in one queue. One mission. And one rule. A simple piece of paper was pinned to a stick beside the soot-darkened wall. Bread. Wash plate before you chop. No wash, no food. No exceptions. No VIP section. And so the rich bent. They washed. Some joked. Others grumbled. But no one left. Even Chief Adewale, the ex-governor worth billions in oil and land, had once rolled up his Agbada and asked, "A beg who last used this sponge?" before scrubbing his own enamel plate beside a barefoot mechanic. He sat on a white plastic chair with one leg shorter than the others, wobbling as he ate. His police escorts stood outside the shed like bodyguards at a nightclub, sweating in their bulletproof vests, too ashamed to look their Oga in the eye as he sucked bone and moaned. "Who cooked this thing?" he asked aloud, tears pricking his eyelids. "God, what did this woman use?" She didn't answer. Mama Put never answered. Welcome to Ideka African Folktales. Please like, comment and share. She was tall and dark with skin like burnt caramel, wrapped in a faded Ankara wrapper that had seen better centuries. Her scarf never matched her clothes. Her hands were always stirring, always busy. She didn't smile. Not even when customers tried to joke with her. If you spoke too much, she pointed to the queue. "Go wash plate." That was it. Her voice was iron and pepper. She never touched phones. Never counted money herself. A boy with tribal marks, mute and nameless, did all the cash collection. But it wasn't the woman alone that brought the mystery. It was the vultures. They perched like sentinels atop the zinc roof, two massive oily black birds with red-ringed eyes and beaks like machetes. They never cawed. Never flapped. Just sat. Watching. And something terrifying always happened when they landed. It could be midday or midnight, rain or shine, but the moment their claws hit the zinc with a cold clunk, it was as though the air shifted. People came running, as if summoned, like rats drawn to a flute, like ants to sugar. One minute Mama Put's shop would be empty. The next it was overflowing, dozens pushing, shouting, begging to be served. Some offered 10,000 Nigerian nairas for a plate of rice. Others tried to bribe their way to the front. But Mama Put never budged. He pointed to the basin of soapy water.
Go wash your plate. No plate, no food, no exception. Go wash your plate. Everybody go wash your plate. Go wash plate, everybody.
Wash plate. And they obeyed, as if under a spell. No matter their status, gender, or pride, everyone washed. They fought over broken spoons and bent forks. And when they finally got their food, they ate in silence, heads bowed, mouths full, eyes glazed with something between hunger and worship. Some wept. Some cursed and begged her to open a second branch. She always said nothing. The only person who ever dared ask her why was Toby, a struggling journalist and part-time YouTuber who smelled a story. He had been told of this strange food seller by his Okada writer. That day curiosity pulled him in. He was poor but not too poor to be skeptical. "This one na juju," he muttered under his breath. But then the vultures landed. And he forgot every word. He stood in line shaking. By the time he reached the front, he didn't even question the basin of greasy water with floating soap remnants. He washed. He waited. He was served. The first spoonful of ogbono soup hit his throat and Toby let out a sound he never made before. Somewhere between a "How?" he whispered, licking his fingers. What did this woman cook this food with? It was 3:47 p.m. on a Thursday when a convoy of 4 black jeeps with tinted windows screeched into the market like a funeral procession gone rogue. Out stepped Chief Adewale, oil tycoon, ex-governor, rumored ritualist. His agbada was white, his wristwatch was a Rolex Oysterflex, and his perfume overpowered even the market's stew smoke. At first people stepped back watching. But when he removed his cap, dropped his phone and walked barefoot to the corner where the basin sat, even the flies went silent. "A beg?" he asked softly. "Who last used this sponge?" Nobody answered. He picked the sponge, washed a cracked plastic plate and walked toward Mama Put. She said nothing. Just scooped. Rice. Stew. A mysterious meat, brown, soft, unfamiliar. He sat on a plastic chair with one leg broken, balancing with the grace of a child, and took one spoon. His mouth paused. He blinked. Once. Twice. Tears welled up in his eyes. "How?" he whispered, lips trembling. "What did this woman cook this food with?" He licked his fingers. Then licked the plate. Then asked for another. He ate 3 plates. By the time he left, he had removed his agbada and tied it on his waist like an errand boy. And when he drove away, he didn't speak for 2 hours. But that night he came back. Alone. No convoy. No guards. And he brought a goat. He left it at the door. As an offering. And the vultures smiled. The market was unusually calm that afternoon, clouds hanging low as if the heavens themselves were eavesdropping on Akoto. Traders spoke in hushed tones. A light wind danced through hanging fabrics, carrying the scent of fried spices, palm oil, and something else, thicker, metallic, like blood. Then came Pastor Dave. He was a firebrand, the kind of preacher who made demons confess with just a shout. He was feared in his district for exposing evil altars, false prophets, and ancestral curses. He wore a crisp white kaftan, a Bible wrapped tightly under his armpit, and a bottle of anointing oil clinking in his side pouch. He didn't come to eat. He came to pass through. But the moment he stepped in front of Mama Put's shop, he froze. His steps locked. His arms stiffened. His gaze went straight upward, to the roof. The vultures. They were staring directly at him. Their eyes glowed faintly, not like reflection. Like fire. A tremor hit his knees. He reached for his Bible with shaky fingers. "There's something unclean here," he muttered, his voice hoarse. His followers tried to steady him, but he stepped forward boldly, raising his Bible to the sky. "In the name of Jez." Suddenly his tongue twisted in his mouth like a snake in a trap. He let out a strangled sound, not a word, not a cry, but a gargled groan. His arms jerked. His knees buckled. He dropped the Bible and staggered backward like a drunk man. "Get him water," someone screamed. His lips foamed. His skin turned pale. He whispered, barely audible, She feeds them at night." They carried him away. And that night he was struck by a violent fever. Pastor Dave screamed in his sleep. His wife tried to wake him, but his body was drenched in sweat, fists clenched, eyes wide but seeing nothing. He mumbled phrases no one understood. The pot, the red eyes, blank faces, chanting her name. They go in whole, come out hollow. For 6 nights he didn't eat, couldn't pray. When he opened his Bible, the pages were blank, just for him. And every night he saw the same vision. A long line of people, famous, poor politicians' children, all crawling naked into a giant bubbling pot. And emerging with blank eyes chanting, "Mama put, Mama put, Mama put." By the 7th day he went silent. Some say he lost his calling. Others say he went into hiding. But no one ever saw him preach again. People whispered about Mama Put's loneliness. A woman with no husband, no children, no visible relatives. But her shack was never truly quiet. At midnight the sounds began. Not voices. Whispers. Soft, airy whispers. Like the walls were gossiping. Like the wind was reading incantations through her windows. The flames from her kerosene stove danced even when unlit. Some neighbors swore they saw her feeding the vultures. Not bread or bones, but chunks of meat pulled directly from the pot. Sometimes she didn't use a spoon. She dipped her bare hand into the boiling soup and fed them, fingers unburnt. One market boy, Toby the shoe shiner, claimed he saw her disappear. She bent near the pot, she opened cover. Then, poof, she no day again. They laughed at him. But he never returned to the market again. There was this popular meat seller. His name is Karimu. He was a rugged man, a veteran meat supplier known across Lagos. He wore blood-stained aprons with pride, smelled of goat fat and charcoal smoke, and never spoke more than necessary. But there was one place he visited with trembling hands. Mama Put's back kitchen. No one else was allowed back there. But one sweltering Tuesday morning, people saw something that haunted them for months. Karimu drove in with a padlocked iron cage, covered with black tarpaulin. Rattled. From inside a sound escaped. A cry. Not the bleating of a goat. Not the squeal of a pig. But a human whimper, a voice of human crying. Children nearby ran. A woman fainted. The sky clouded over instantly. Thunder growled. And on cue the vultures stirred, flapping wings as large as car bonnets. They circled once, then landed atop the zinc roof. Their eyes glowed. That day the queue for food stretched 3 streets long. Cars blocked entire junctions. People fainted waiting. And yet they waited. Something had changed in the stew. The taste was addictive beyond reason. Customers licked plates, bit their own fingers by mistake, even tried to bribe their way back into line for second rounds. "What meat is this?" one man asked. "Sweet sin," Mama Put murmured. He laughed, thinking it was a joke. Then the madness reached social media. Curious bloggers heard about it and starred. Tracy Amma was no small name. 2.5 million followers, queen of exposing Nigeria, the voice of food or fraud. She arrived at Akoto Market in full makeup, pink wig, 2 cameramen and a drone. "Today I will show you how Nigerians are bewitched by food," she said into the camera. "This woman is a scam. A cultist. Let's unravel her nonsense." She refused to wash a plate. "I'm not washing Jack," she snapped. "I don't even wash dishes at home." The crowd gasped. Mama Put looked up, slowly. Their eyes locked. Tracy laughed and pointed her mic in Mama Put's face. "What do you have to say to the people watching right now?" Mama Put didn't blink. Her lips moved. "You go regret." That was all. Tracy rolled her eyes, turned around and walked off. That night, Tracy's entire camera footage was corrupted. Her editor screamed. The memory cards turned black and unreadable. The drone, which had flown over Mama Put's shack, crashed and melted its lens. Worse still, Tracy lost her voice. Completely. No sore throat. Just gone. The next day her crew members began having nightmares. One spoke briefly before falling silent forever. She was cooking, and we were the meat. Tracy began to sleepwalk. Her family found her standing in the rain at 3 a.m. whispering, "Wash plate before you chop. Mama Put. Mama Put." On the 5th night she vanished. On the 6th day she returned, to Akoto Market. Barefoot. Wigless. Shivering. She walked through the market like a ghost. Straight to the plastic basin. Washed a plate. Got on her knees. And licked the floor. Tears streamed down her face. Please. Just one scoop, just one. Mama Put looked down at her. And smiled for the first time in recorded history. And so Mama Put continued to prosper in her evil in the name of food vendor. In that market, a girl Nkechi, 16 years. A quiet orphan with eyes too wide for her face and scars too deep for her age. She begged near Mama Put's shed, always barefoot, always watching. One night, too tired to walk home, she curled behind the shop and fell asleep. What woke her wasn't sound but silence. A strange vacuum. A stillness where even the rats held their breath. He peeked through a crack. And saw hell. Mama Put stood before her bubbling cauldron, cloaked in writhing shadows that clung to her like leeches. The vultures perched above her, eyes glowing crimson. She wasn't cooking. She was summoning. More souls, the vultures croaked. Feed them. Bind them. Burn their names. They taste better when they're proud. Mama Put nodded and dropped a handful of black powder into the pot. The stew turned blood red and bubbled like it was alive, gurgling, gasping, screaming. Nkechi gasped. The vultures turned. Her scream broke the night like a cracked drum. But no one heard. She vanished. 7 days later she returned, dirty, shivering and mute. Her eyes, hollow. He carried only a notebook. Inside in shaky writing. She cooks with shadows. She feeds on greed. The food is flesh. The taste is sin. And the pot wants more. To everyone who needed to see it, she showed them and explained more in writing. Then came the raid. The raid shook Akoto Market. Journalists, priests, herbalists, and forensic experts swarmed the crooked shop with gloves and sacred oil. But none of them could explain the stench of ash and meat, or why the walls whispered in old tongues, or why the ground bled when they dug. Behind Mama Put's crooked kitchen they found bones, hundreds. Some yellow with time. Others fresh, still red with sinew. Each skull was carved with symbols. Old Igbo dialect no one could fully translate, but one phrase kept repeating. Nri biyundu. Ndu bunri. Food is life. Life is food. When they tried to arrest her, she did not run. She smiled. She stirred. And when the vultures screamed, time itself buckled. People who have been fed with Mama Put food fell to their knees, vomiting black bile. Officers cried like children. Pastor Dave, who had not spoken in weeks, suddenly burst into flames inside his prayer room across town, shouting, "It is not food, it is worship." Mama Put vanished. Not in a puff of smoke. Not in a blur of speed. She simply wasn't there anymore, as if she had never been. All that remained was her pot. It still bubbled. Yet no fire beneath it. No one could move it. Those who tried lost their hands. One woman opened the lid, and screamed until her voice tore out of her throat. What people saw inside her massive pot left all of them speechless. The pot from which Mama Put fed them daily. "I will never eat any food cook in the market," one man snapped. Thank you for watching till the end. Don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories like this. Turn on the bell icon so you never miss another tale from the edge of reality.
Go wash your plate. No food, no exception. Go wash your plate. Everybody go wash your plate. Go wash plate, everybody.